You're listening to Puma Podcast.
Sir, nung Odette po ba, naapektuhan po kayo?
Oh, akong bahay. Dasa ko mga cottage ha, mga
Apat na cottages tsaka yung dalawang bangka na destroyed ng bagyo. Umabot ng 500,000 yung yung damage. Hanggang ngayon hindi siya naka-receive ng assistance sa gobyerno.
Ako po si Trisha Aquino, Puma Podcast, and this is a special 6-part report for Teka Teka News. You're now in the 3rd episode in this, our Alagang Handa series. In every story, we explore the relationship between animal welfare and our own well-being before, during, and after the powerful natural forces that are simply part of living in the Philippines. So far, we've visited with farmers in hog and poultry industries. Farmers, producers, and market vendors who, time and again, have had to choose their lives over their animals, but who therefore also have to rebuild time and again, every time without those same animals on which they depend. In this episode, we head to the coast and to the open waters. Talking about people's lives entwined with other creatures, we visit with the fisherfolk of Visayas. Alagang Handa is produced with support from Internews' Earth Journalism Network. There's a construction boom in Lapu-Lapu City. Here and still rising are Cebu's most luxurious resorts. Mayor Junard Chan has announced a 400-hectare reclamation project where commercial buildings, water parks, a theme park, a golf course, and shopping and entertainment areas will be developed. One of the barangays to be affected by everything is Punta Engaño. We spoke with fisherfolk there. Staff of Pangisda Pilipinas, an alliance of small-scale and municipal fishers, accompanied us to a lot that's the subject of a land dispute. A concrete road cut through patches of grass that themselves were dotted with chicken cages. On the edge of the Hilutungan Channel, fishing boats bobbed on the water. We entered a small hut.
ako si Billy Daitol o Carmelo Daitol.
Gaano katagal na po kayo nangingisda, sir?
Sus, 12 pa edad ako, nangisda ako.
12 years old pa.
12 old.
Ilan taon na po kayo ngayon, sir?
68 size yun tade.
Oh,
Maliban kay Mang Carmelo, you're hearing the voice of John Sichon. He's a Cebu-based reporter who accompanied us for the series. Maririnig niyo rin si Bugs Polestico, community organizer ng Pangisda Pilipinas. John and Bugs translated for us.
Sir, nung Odette po ba, naapektuhan po kayo?
oh, akong bahay. Dasa ko mga cottage ha, mga
Apat na cottages tsaka yung dalawang bangka na destroyed ng bagyo. Umabot ng 500,000 yung damage. Hanggang ngayon hindi siya naka-receive ng assistance sa gobyerno.
Mang Carmelo and his family used to have a stretch of beach where they rented out cottages for tourists. 3,500 pesos per day, kasama na renta sa videoke. This was their main source of livelihood, but the cottages, together with the TVs and sound systems, were destroyed by Super Typhoon Odette. Because of all the development, they're also now fighting to keep their land. Kaya umaasa na lang sa pangingisda si Mang Carmelo. Buti na lang, sabi niya, sa 6 na anak, 2 na lang ang nag-aaral pa. All of these realities were sharpened when Odette struck 2 years ago. He remembers it vividly, from the day they were warned, but couldn't do anything.
sa Balitas TV.
Nalaman nila yung balita ng bagyo sa TV, pero wala namang pumunta dito from the government na ipaalam o i-evacuate sila. So dito lang sila nagstay sa kanilang bahay. Nung talagang winash out ng alon yung bahay nila, gumapang na lang sila palabas doon sa highway.
Abot ng dagat ini.
It took half a year to rebuild Mang Carmelo's home, which was 3 houses from the hut where we sat. He says it's more modest now than how it originally was. Prices of construction materials soared after Odette. He, his wife, and 2 of their children lived in a tent while they tried to rebuild. Odette thrashed his pump boat and nets into the sea, he said. His brother's boat was battered, but at least it wasn't lost. The brothers made do with 1 surviving boat between them, and over the next year it kept them and their fishing afloat. Every day they would fish, sell what they could, and bring home 150 to 200 pesos.
Yan yung pambili nila ng bigas.
Walang gamit kay
Halos 1 taon bago kami nakabalik ng pangisda dahil wala kaming lambat. Dahil malaki ang gastos ng lambat, aabot ng mga 50,000.
At ngayong 2 taon na ang nakalipas matapos ang Odette, hindi pa rin bumabalik sa normal ang buhay nila. Kakaunti na lang ang isda, sabi ni Mang Carmelo.
Wala na
Dahil
coral.
ang pangisdaan ay parang inararo ng Odette, yung mga corals, yung mga seaweeds, yan yung mga parang sinira talaga ni Odette. Yung mga mamalaking bato dito sa pangpang, dito sa taas, talagang binaba niya. Kaya parang sira talaga pati yung pangisdaan.
The corals are gone, they said, plowed over by Odette.
Kinailangan niyo po bang pumunta ng mas malayo at mas matagal para
Oo, pumunta kami ng Bohol.
Kailangan nila talagang pumunta sa malayo para makahuli ng isda sa Bohol, sa Camotes area para lang makahuli kasi konti na lang talaga daw dito.
Kunti lang wala namin makuha kay dire.
Mang Carmelo said they have to venture farther into the sea, nearer now to the coast of Bohol than to Cebu. Napansin niya na to dati pa. Tuwing may bagyo, pumapalaot ang isda dahil dinadala sila ng malalakas na alon sa malayo. Tuwing tagtuyot naman, wala rin sa Pampang ang mga isda dahil mas mainit ang tubig dito kaysa sa malalim na bahagi ng dagat.
Hunas, mabaw kayo. Karon taga-diri na eh. Dagat ug hunas.
Dati daw, nung wala pang Odette, mayroon pang parang baybayin. Mababaw lang yung baybayin. Pero after Odette, lumalim na yung dito sa tabi hanggang bewang na kung low tide.
At bakit nga ba mahalaga ang taas ng tubig? Marami sa mga mangingisda rito ay sumisisid para manghuli ng isda gamit ang sibat. Ibig sabihin, kung mas malalim na ang dagat, kailangan din nilang sumisid ng mas malalim para manghuli ng isda. Ang isa pang problema, commercial fishers.
Di siguro marami ng mga mangingisda ba, yung mga malaking bangka pumasok.
Dati, marami talaga silang huli pero nung nagsimulang dumami yung mangingisda at dumami din yung mga commercial fishers, yan yung parang nakaubos ng mga isda sa laot. Ngayon, konti na talaga yung huli nila, mabuti na nakakain sila ng 3 beses isang araw.
Wala po bang ginagawa yung gobyerno para kayo po yung maunang nakapangisda dito at hindi yung malalaking...
Wala man ginabadlungan nila.
Wala daw, hindi nila sinasaway yung mga commercial fishers na pumapasok sa kanilang pangisdaan.
There are legal restrictions as to how close to the coast commercial fishers can go. Of course, they're more competitive compared to small-scale fishers like Julius Dano, the youngest fisherman among them. Julius has been fishing since he was 12. He's now 38. Dati meron silang mga payaw sa dagat na nilagay doon para sa kanila ng Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources. Ang payaw ay parang lubid na tinatalian ng mga dahon ng niyog at nagsisilbi itong pangitlugan ng mga isda. Pinapadali nito ang pangingisda dahil mamimingwit na lang sina Mang Julius, may huli na sila. Pero hindi nila ito natutukan ng maayos dahil sa lakas ng amihan. At kalaunan, ninakaw at pinutol daw ito ng mga commercial fishers. Nag-request na raw sina Mang Julius ng panibagong payaw mula sa BIFAR, pero hindi pa sila nabibigyan ng kapalit. I went into this interview wanting to find out what the government's practices were when it came to disaster preparedness and response, and whether there were specific actions that considered the unique challenges fisherfolk face. But I realized that it doesn't matter asking that question in the context of a typhoon or a drought. Even without emergencies, the Philippine Statistics Authority says fisherfolk comprise the poorest sector in the Philippines. Nearly 1 in 3 of them live below the poverty line. Ito ulit si Mang Carmelo.
Ano po ang kailangan nyo mula sa gobyerno at meron po ba silang tulong na binigay pagkatapos ng audit?
Murag matutingaling kuan. Murag magwa sa gobyerno.
After audit, yun yung na-receive nila 5,000 from the mayor. Ang gusto namin sa gobyerno ay tutulungan yung mga mangingisda tulad ng mga gamit sa pangingisda para meron kaming kita tulad ng pump boat, mga fishing gears dahil ang hirap ng buhay lalo na kung may mga pinapaaral kayo lalo na kung kolehiyo.
The fishermen I interviewed weren't able to complete formal schooling, and like many poor Filipino parents, they worked hard so their own children could get an education and in turn lead better lives, or at least have options. For Crispin Gaya, the 60-year-old leader of the Lapu-Lapu fisherfolk, all he wanted was for their efforts to be valued.
Ang ako lang ipaabot punta sa gobyerno ba, ila unta tutukan ang mga mananagat.
Sana focusan ng government ang mga programa o proyekto para sa pangisdaan. Sana suportaan dahil yung mga mangingisda ang nagpapakain ng lipunan. Sila yung kumukuha ng isda para mapakain yung mga tao. Kaya lang, sa kanyang naobserbahan, hindi talaga seryoso yung programa para sa suporta sa mga maliit na mangingisda. Kahit nga nung pagkatapos ng audit, namigay sila ng 5,000, kulang ngayon para sa pagkain, hindi nakapagtayo ng bahay na nasira ng audit. Tulad niya, nasira yung kanyang sasakyang pandagat, hindi siya nakatanggap ng ayuda kahit yung 5,000 hindi siya nakatanggap.
In nearby Olango Island, where 4 of Mang Crispin's siblings live, they leaned on the help of nuns of St. Alfonso's Catholic School in Lapu-Lapu City. The sisters raised funds for a few pump boats for those who lost their means of livelihood. Other fisherfolk in Olango Island got into debt with those fortunate enough to still have boats. They ride along, earn enough just to slowly pay off their debt, and all they take home are a few pieces of fish to feed their families. Bugs, he's the coordinator of Pangisda Pilipinas in Visayas, says it's easy to see the impact on children in the villages. Many are visibly malnourished.
Marami sa mga pamilya ng mga mangingisda nanggagaling ang mataas na kaso ng malnutrition ng mga anak. Makakuha sila ng 4 kilos na isda, 5 kilos, 6 kilos, 8. Hindi naman nilang niyang kukunan ng parte para ulam. Buo yang itinda, tapos bibili sila ng sardinas, noodles, para pang-ulam. Dati, hindi mataas ang problema ng hypertension ng mga mangingisda. Pero dahil nga sa lifestyle nila at saka yung mga pagkain nila na hindi na ganun ka healthy, ay marami din kaso ng hypertension. Mas marami na mga processed na foods, yung mga marami ng preservatives, ganun ba, nabibili sa mga sari-sari store, canned goods, processed foods. Ganun.
Kasi yun ang mas affordable.
Mas affordable.
Si Bugs mismo galing sa pamilya ng mga mangingisda, pati na rin mga magsasaka. Sa Bohol siya lumaki, pero sa Cebu siya nag-aral. At pagkatapos nito, nagtrabaho na siya sa advokasya para sa pangisdaan at kalikasan. Ilang beses na rin siyang nakawitness ng demolition ng fishing communities sa Lapu-Lapu City. At nilipat sila sa barangay Punta Engaño, kung saan kami bumisita.
So dahil doon sila nilagay lahat, problema yun sa may drainage, problema nila yung kanilang palikuran, problema nila yung tubig. Dahil sa Punta Engaño walang fresh water dito. brackish yung water nila dito. Kaya bibili sila ng tubig na dala-dala ng tanker, yung water tanker.
60 pesos daw ang halaga ng bawat drum ng tubig. At sapat lang ito sa isang araw na gamit.
So, wala kang drainage, wala kang fresh water, wala kang palikuran. Ang karamihan dito sila pumupunta sa mga dito sa open area ginagamit lang palikuran. Kaya marami din kaso dito ng dengue. Marami din ang kaso nagkakasakit dahil sa walang fresh water. Kaya yan yung mga hinaharap din na problema sa health ng mga mangingisda dito. Yun yung nakakalungkot.
Pumunta kami sa Lapu-Lapu City Hall para alamin mula mismo sa local officials kung ano ang ginagawa nila para tugunan ang mga pangangailangan ng mga mangingisda. Behind the main building was the City Agriculture and Fisheries Office. It was raining when we arrived and some water had leaked into the office. Madilim ang koridor. Nakasiksik sa isang tabi ang iba't ibang fishing equipment na i-distribute pa lang. We were met by OIC Alex Baring. Si Sir Alex, 6 na taong gulang pa lang, nangingisda na kasama ang tatay niya. He stopped fishing when he was 18. He took up engineering and now he works alongside fishery technician Edwin Leong, ang pinakamatagal nang nagtatrabaho sa opisinang ito. This is Edwin.
Yung major intervention namin is talagang ni-upgrade namin yung fishing methodology ng fisher folks natin na maging talaga environmental friendly yung approach nila. Yun na, emphasizing yung hook and line. Then in line with that is we introduce this fish aggregating device, the payaw.
Alex said they had placed 24 payaws in the municipal waters.
Every time you have a meeting, yun nga, one association, nag-complain na. Minsan ibang halos na umiyak kasi pinutol yung payaw nila sa mga malalaking troll na pumasok sa aming municipal water. We are planning to reactivate our bantay dagat para talagang ma-closely monitor yung municipal water namin against the incursion sa commercial fishers.
Pag po nasira yung payaw,
wala na.
ano pong ginagawa ng office nyo? Meron po kung parang replacement or...
Yun nga, sometimes that is the problem, no? Kaya alam na natin ano yung nature sa government. Kahit mag-request na ka ng isang rim na bond paper, it take you 2 months to 3 months to arrive the fund. Then we cannot wait that duration niya na wala nang kinakain yung mga fisher folks natin kasi yun nga, one unit of paya will cost about pila right now, Sir Alex?
Almost 40,000.
Almost 40,000.
And how long does it take to process that budget?
Tagal-tagal basta.
So nagre-request naman po kayo talaga ng replacement? Matagal lang?
Oo, pero yun nga sa aming case, kasi bago lang itong opisina namin, kasi by 2011, the past administration abolished the City Agriculture Office. Bago lang ito na-revive under the new mayor, 2021. In fact, right now, wala pa talaga kami specific budget for the office.
So, aware po talaga kayo sa needs ng fisher folk?
Oo nga. In fact, ang ginawa na namin to maximize yung resources for the fisher folks, we strengthen our linkages with the non-government organization. Nakatulong naman. In fact, in Olango, we have facilitated 100 unit of pamboat in support sa fisher folks. Then, yung mga payaw din namin, sponsored ng mga private companies na we tap to assist the fisher folks. Kasi alam namin na kung we just rely on government resources, talagang walang mangyayari. Kasi iba-iba yung priority ng gobyerno. Considering pa yung may panawagan sa national DA na all locals unit have to increase by 10% sa agricultural production. Paano yun kung yun nga sa taas naman very limited yung allocation nila sa budget down sa mga regional offices.
If you were to help these fishers have the lives that they deserve, how much funding would you need per year?
Per year for us to fully operate, more or less an amount of 2 million. Isa din itong mga hinanakit na mga official ng Bureau of Fishery and Aquatic Resources. Very kulilat yung allocation nila ng funding. In fact, some of those mga officials, they are now advocating to make a separate department for fishery, Department of Fishery and Aquatic Resources, to make it a separate department from agriculture. Maganda naman kasi kung tingnan mo, we are the 4th largest pelagic nation in the world. Then we have this problem in the West Philippine Sea. And it will really help a lot. Yun nga, yung mga mga intelligent fan na mga isyo, mabuti pa ibigay nila sa BIFAR.
Tama mo na yung confidential funds.
Ilagay nila sa BIFAR para maayos na yung problema sa West Philippine Sea.
If you had unlimited budget, what would your first intervention be for fishing folk?
Una, yung promotion ng aquaculture para ma-decongest yung laot natin kasi yung isang problema natin is the issue of overfishing at saka depleted na talaga yung marine resources natin. That's why as fallback position we have to engage in fish farming along the shallow water, yung mga coastal areas natin through fish cages and fish pen. At saka hindi naman tayo discuss about inland fish pond kasi almost all the inland fish pond are already converted to housing and subdivision.
As the Lapu-Lapu City Agriculture and Fisheries Office waits for the money that will allow it to put in place everything its constituents need, Merlinda Daitol, a 63-year-old leader of urban poor women in Punta Engaño, can only hope another Odette doesn't come in her lifetime.
Kung na yung mga kalamidad, so maragi mi matrigger mi nga na po maabot nga kalamidad asa na mi padung.
Kung may mga parating na bagyo ay naghahanda talaga sila, pinag-iisipan nila kung saan sila kukuha ng pagkain, pondo ng pagkain, dahil kahit sa hirap ay parang nagtutulungan sila. Pero yung sa paghahanda, sabi niya, parang ang kanilang paghahanda ay doon sa pagpipray, yung pagdarasal na lang na walang nangyaring masama.
Napangiti si Aling Merlinda nung tinanong ko sa kanya kung ano ang ginagawa nila para paghandaan ang mga kalamidad. At parang nahihiya siya nang ang masagot lang niya ay magdasal. Pero kung wala naman talaga siyang makakapitan, lalo na't namatay ang asawa niyang mangingisda noong 2022 at nag-aalaga pa siya ng 2 apo. Kanina pa ba siya hihingi ng saklolo?
Kasagaran unta ang amo pangayoon ng mga tabang.
Ang pangangailangan namin kung may mga kalamidad, sana'y tulong sa hanap buhay, the livelihood, at saka yung sa bahay, yung pagtatayo muli ng kabahayan. Pero sabi niya, wala naman silang natatanggap o yung pag-a-address ng hanap buhay at saka yung pagpapatayo ng kabahayan nila after kalamidad.
Sabi ni Mang Julius, mahirap man ang buhay ng isang mangingisda, hindi pa rin niya to ipagpapalit para kumuha ng ibang trabaho.
Maon lagi akong nahiligan lagi.
Ito na yung kinagisnan ko at ito na yung alam ko na hanap buhay. Parang hilig. Nakatry naman siyang mag-construction worker kaya lang parang gusto na talaga niyang bumalik sa dagat.
Lahi man ang dagat o Aritas
malaki ang pagkakaiba dahil dito sa trabaho sa construction o trabaho dito
na may amo, na may
sa
masuko.
kalupaan, mabigat yung katawan nila. Compare sa dagat na parang relax ka, wala kang amo, wala kang boss, so hawak mo yung oras mo.
In the next episode of Alagang Handa, we're traveling to Batangas to meet the victims and some heroes during the Taal volcano eruption in 2020. How did volunteers and government officials see to the animals who were affected by that calamity? Again, I'm Trisha Aquino, the writer and producer of this episode. It was edited by Mark Casilian. Research from Paul Soriano. The script was edited by Robbie Alampay. Jill Caro is the executive producer. You've been listening to Teka Teka News. Thank you again to Internews' Earth Journalism Network for making this series possible.